Alright everyone, welcome back to another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan Battle video. My name is D3 here today. We are taking a look at some news that came out last night as it pertains to the STR Cell EZA. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Hit that subscribe, of course, if you are new for more content. Today's video like goal is 1,000 likes if you guys do enjoy the content here on the channel as well. So let's go ahead and talk about it. So we do have information about the STR Cell, again, EZA here. This is going to be coming up in a couple of days on the Japanese version of the game. You couldn't tell by the kanji, right? From the official Twitter. So here we go. There's a look at the image, and now we're going to actually go ahead and translate, or not get we're going to get the translations, excuse me. I ain't a translator. Unless it's Google Translate. We're going to get the translations from my man Talon, and then from there we're going to talk about what each of these things means for this character. We're going to talk about the before and after for the character, and then we'll follow up and end things on talking about how he fits on some of these teams and just what he can do, right? So that being said, let's get into it. So leader skill, STR types 3 key 120. You guys know that's a good leader skill in terms of having a viable sub leader if you're looking for Battlefield, or even if you just need an STR team for some reason. That's good, right? Also, it's not restricted between super and extreme class, so that's good. Passive, 100% attack and 50% defense at the beginning of the turn. Let's go ahead and just immediately do this, right? EZA unit means higher stats, right? Also means SA level 15. So there's that. Just gotta point that out. But he, at the beginning of the turn, here's the really funny part. At the beginning of the turn, the unit only had attack plus 100%. Cell is from an era in the game where it did not matter what you were taking on. All you needed was attack, pretty much. He did get defense, admittedly, from the super, 20% per super, but it didn't really stack like that, you know what I'm saying, at the time. So that's just kind of 2016, 2017. It just didn't matter. Nowadays, every single unit pretty much is getting access to start of the turn defense, whether it's a support unit, or like if they're a support unit, maybe they get dodges or weird things like that, but you get my point. So that being said, that's all he had initially. So he's actually in line for a huge upgrade. So 100% attack still, 50% defense at the beginning of the turn. And then the second part of the passive, right? You see that 6 and then the 30% attack and defense. If you collect 6 orbs or more, you get an additional 30% attack and defense. So Talon, I'm going to go ahead and trust on this because he's obviously really, really good at what he does, right? As far as the translations are concerned. But my only question is that 6 orbs or 6 key? Because 6 orbs is very different than 6 key. The reason why is because 6 key is technically 3 red orbs, right? He can get that done easy. 6 orbs makes a huge difference in that you probably won't get that as often, right? You probably just won't get 6 orbs static each time around to get that additional. But I can say that, you know, this unit doesn't necessarily need that additional, but it obviously does help out a great bit, right, if you can get access to that. Also, as far as this is concerned, it's looking at orbs collected, so I'm going to assume that this activates at the time of his attack, meaning not before, you know, if you're looking for that defense, right, beforehand, I don't think he'll have it if he's in the front spot, for example, until he's attacked. And then he'll also get a super attack off and then raise his stats even further. But that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and assume that. Correct me if I'm mistaken. Also, I don't think it could be multiplicative. I don't know. You just have to see how he works. But just food for thought there. But again, 6 key is way different than 6 orbs. 6 orbs is nowhere near as good because of the, again, static 6 requirement. But I will say, Android 13's EZA, one specifically, right, is really good because of the orb generation. He was always good for that, but now he's way more viable, and he's going to be really good in that scenario. So let's go ahead and take a look at some more of what we got here. And if facing 2 or more enemies, then all enemies get 20% attack and defense minus 20%, excuse me, attacking and defense. So, okay, that one is good. So, okay, they've outdone themselves with this. Without even reading the last part, we'll get to that in a moment. They've outdone themselves with this unit, and here's why. They've produced a unit who obviously had attack and defense stacking beforehand. He still has it. Looks like he heals as well. We'll read that. But they produced a unit who is good versus SBR and is also really good versus the Goku event. And by extension, by being good at those events, obviously you should be good versus some of the other content that's harder in the game too. By allowing him to have, again, access to start of the turn boost that just speeds up the process of getting those crazy high tanky numbers or crazy high damage numbers via the stacks on his super attacks. And then also giving him a debuff. Right? Given the debuff, that is going to be paramount versus Super Battle Road. It's also good by extension in World Tournament. I do want to mention that because he has a unit that can attack all enemies with his 11 key super. So versus World Tournament, I don't think it makes a huge difference on the higher modifiers. That could be corrected and mistaken, but I mean, maybe it allows you to where you don't need to use an item, right? But yeah. That being said, crazy good versus SBR. 20% down is not. It's not a crazy high. It's not like it's 40%, right? But it's still really, really good. And for an example of how good that debuff is, do check out my STR EZA Boo showcase that I put up a couple of days ago, in which I talk about, and here's actually how he is post EZA for the people that are wondering, where he has that exact same part of his passive versus the Majin Buu Saga events. So minus 20% attack and defense for all enemies. Now, it's not restricted, right? It's not actually, it's just always there. It's not even versus that specific event, actually. It's just always there. But it's not restricted, and he's doing it in that entire video, and it makes a huge difference when he shows up versus when he's not there as far as the units and their tankiness is concerned. The only downside is that part of the passive isn't good versus Dokkan events past like Phase 2, because, you know, Phase 1, maybe they'll have multiple enemies. Phase 2, sometimes, right? Or even if it's like the cooler event or like the full power Goku event where, you know, towards like what, 3rd phase or whatever, they finally pick up multiple enemies. But that being said, for the more or less for the final boss, it's not going to be applicable. And then of course, legendary Goku event, not applicable. But in the future, maybe if there's a duo character one, I don't know. I don't think that'll be a thing, but maybe, you never know. It'll be applicable there. But still, better to have than not to have, right? But again, paramount for Super Battle Road. It's going to help out so much. By the way, guys, do check out Talon. Link will be down below. So for the 11 key super attack, it raises attack and defense via the Kaioken mechanic. The mechanic is dubbed Kaioken because he was, I believe, the first attack stacking unit in the game, right? And that's how we just all came to know the mechanic. But it heals 10% HP now while doing the attack all. So, okay. The only downside to it being the 11 key is if you ever get an additional super, it will default to the 10 key Solar Kamehameha, because it always, with every character that has multiple supers, defaults to their LRs or whoever, right? Defaults to their weakest attack, key multiplier wise, or key wise technically. So that being said, it would go to his 10 key, which isn't a big deal, right? You want an attack stack, defense stack. You just can't double heal, right? But that being said, 10% heal is 10% heal. I will take that. I will take that, and I'll take it happily, right? So attack and defense stack, still a thing. There's no reason not to get this. The only reason not to get the 11 key super is they don't show us the modifier of it, but it did have mass damage. I'm going to assume it jumps to Supreme because most of the, you know what? I don't know, actually. This is a weird one. Cell's a weird one because he actually raises attack here. I don't know if his will go to, if it does go to Supreme, then there's really no reason not to get it in a lot of cases. It's still not going to do as much damage as the Solar. But in a lot of cases, with him now, you obviously try to avoid that because there's such a huge disparity. Mass is equivalent to Extreme. That's what this is. It's equivalent to Extreme. Then you have Supreme in the middle, and then you have Mence here, right? And of course, he can still go to SA15, so again, it's still going to hit harder, right? But that's a huge disparity. So again, you'd probably still want to get this one if you can, if it stays exactly the same, regardless of attack stacking and stuff like that. But at least they've added incentive to where it's like, okay, if you're low on HP and if you just outright need the heal, can get the heal. So again, there's just more stuff that's good versus like Super Battle Road, for example. Not even that's good versus every event, but Super Battle Road, he's able to hit all enemies, debuff all enemies, and also heal in regards to being able to use that attack, right? So it's awesome. Cell got a huge upgrade. This is a huge upgrade. For context, I tried previously to multiple times actually. It felt like the Android category team needed a perfect run. 100% all the additional attacks they could get, all the right placements for super attacks they could get, like just to be able to even get close to beating the legendary Goku event, unless you weren't running full Android. If you were to sub in some units for the super physical lead and stuff like that from the Android 17, then fine. If you're running full Android, you struggled. It was almost impossible. I honestly, all my units in Rainbow, I did it like 17 times. It's impossible, right? And that's the same thing for like a team like SS3. It's just really difficult. But with this guy, with the Android 13 options as well, and presumably soon more units coming out, I would imagine that it gets a lot easier, right? The only downside to this guy, though, is he's a Perfect Cell, and if there's a Perfect Cell Dokkan Fest coming up soon, he might still be better, but we'll see what happens. But yeah, so very impressed with this guy. He's going to fit perfectly on his teams. And the key draw to this guy is he actually has some really good villain links. Access to Nightmare, of course, Big Bad, he has that too. He has Revival if you wanted to run him on Resurrected Warriors, but he has Shocking Speed. Now, if we take a look at Cell cards, Let me go back. The Super Perfect cells, to be specific, right? He's the only one that has access to shocking speed. These other two were so old. They came out at a time where shocking speed really wasn't that common, man. And they just don't got it. They just don't got it, right? So that being said, he is obviously going to be, and he was designed for the most part to be your best unit anyway among those three. Int is pretty good as well because his attack stack and things like that. And then, of course, you have kind of consistent versus inconsistency with the Tech one because he requires orbs and stuff. But STR Cell is going to do very well on all those settings, right? And then on androids, he's actually going to fit very well here because this team actually has a couple of things. They have access to a ton of support because they're freaking leaders of support, you know, this is still one of my favorite leaders in the game because the way he can function. But then on top of that, they're shocking speed heavy. They have a lot of shocking speed too in here. And then again, they also did pick up that Int 13 EZA, so like he's going to be producing orbs. So yeah, he changes. He makes rainbow orbs, which is the best thing you can freaking do because they burst into other orbs, right? So you have access to a ton of options here. But again, if you guys would like to see the EZA boo down below, but you know, I think that when it came to the Goku event, Android struggled, but I think they'll be able to do this. Well, again, full Android category. I think some people have done it. Like I think Truth did it, but I think he used Gogeta, but like stuff like that. I think he tweeted that a few months ago. I imagine I could do it, right? And the reason why stacks are so important is because you can cheese that event, right? I did a video with my Piccolo, who I got rainbowed apparently before all my friends. But hey, I was able to no item it. Like my Piccolo, he was able to, because the stacks, when you get 700,000 defense, it doesn't make any sense, right? So Cell, I don't think it's going to get that high in particular. It just depends on your setup, but 500,000 defense, like whatever, right? So anyways, the only question is the secondary part of the passive, key or orbs. We'll see. But anyways, have an awesome day, everyone, and I'll catch all of you guys in the next one.